So yesterday, Zelensky spoke to the U.S. military officers at the National Defense University. Here, we're going to watch the full video of him speaking. It's on YouTube in multiple sources, and we're going to watch, and then I'll chime in just periodically. I'll try not to interject too much, but we want to hear what he has to say. Okay, here we go.
So, Mr. President, thank you so much for being here today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much.
So it already starts with a standing ovation that's blocking the
Thank you very much.
video.
Thank you very much. Too much for me. No, thank you so much. I'm great honor to be here. General Plain, Mr. President of the National Defense University, thank you for your warm, kind words. Thank you so much. I want to start by saying thanks to Secretary Austin, the huge man, big friend of Ukraine. Thank you very much for your personal, no, really, thank you for your personal leadership during this time, for supporting us, supporting Ukraine, and defending all free world. Chairman Brown, thank you for your vision and support, and special thanks to Secretary Del Toro and Secretary Wormuth for all your invaluable support to the Ukrainian Navy and Army. Thank you very much. And
now, I want to comment on something here. He's speaking in English. Now, when he spoke to Congress, he spoke through a translator. The first time he spoke through a translator, and then at the very end, transferred to English to make his appeal. But he's speaking in English. He also talked about defending the free world, the whole free world, and that's, I think, a fair statement, because what if it stops in Ukraine? It stops.
It's a real honor for me to be here, to be and speak here at this university, and known for its years of dedication to fine-tuning the defense of freedom. The world not just knows the names of those who studied and taught here, it really feels the impact of the choices they've made, or the guidance they have given as mentors. And if you look at it that way, Ukraine definitely deserves to be here, represented by our brave warriors, our people, and I believe as equals. Ukraine has left its mark on the world. That's something you can feel, as probably felt most strongly now in Moscow. And it's going to keep being felt there even more so until we tackle this enemy of freedom.
Now, he's speaking to a very sympathetic audience, because the defense community is largely supportive of Ukraine. Um, so I think he knows his audience, and he's speaking warrior to warrior, and this is good so far.
Ladies and gentlemen, in many speeches and lectures given in places like this university or similar ones, people often talk about after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. As soon as you hear that, you get what they are talking about, the time period, the emotions, the leadership involved. And most importantly, it's about how freedom spread like ripples in a pond through Central Europe and the Eastern Europe and across the world. The world really did change after that wall came down, starting a new era. They said it would be a time when freedom, human rights, democracy, and market economy would lead the way globally. And that wasn't just talk. Nations that had been under the thumb for so long and could only dream of freedom started walking that path. But the ones who used to suppress freedom, they didn't give up their dreams either. Since 19
So this is really good to go back to the Berlin Wall and talk about, hey, remember when this collapsed? Remember when the evil empire was the evil empire? We worked toward freedom, but they didn't give up either. That's really good rhetoric.
1989, freedom's enemies got stronger, trying to turn their annoyance at freedom's success into a comeback. They channeled funds into terrorism, stirred up trouble, spread hate, stoked the fires of local conflicts, trying to turn them into full-blown wars, or at least freeze them like incurable tumors, stifling the freedom of nations. They brought back the nuclear scare. Every decade piled on more problems, and not one year in the last 30 plus years was safe for freedom. 2022 turned out to be the year when one of the biggest enemies of freedom, with its all out, unjust, and unprovoked war, tried to smash everything beloved since the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah,
Russia's
so that's a really powerful point, and he's really tying this together. I think a failed argument for Ukraine is to say, well, you have, and I mean this politically, is to say, well, somebody's got to go help those Ukrainians. That works with a certain segment of the people, but if you broaden it and talk about how this is freedom under attack, your freedom is actually under attack, because if that works there, then this is going to potentially happen, or China is going to start, or this is going to happen. Like, if we can contain it here, we can stop it from spilling out and becoming a broader principle. I think that's a greater argument to get support, and he has to keep beating that drum.
war on Ukraine isn't just about some old-fashioned dictatorship trying to settle scores, real or imagined. It's not just Moscow trying to split Europe again. It's Putin attacking that big shift that happened back in 1989. He's fighting Ukraine, but really, he's he's up against all of free
There you go.
united Europe. He's wrecking everyday life in Ukrainian cities, but his real target is the freedom people enjoy from Warsaw to Chicago to Yokohama. He's trying to make democratic countries lose hope, pushing the idea that dictatorships with a bit of market economy are winning this global face off. This isn't just about competing systems. Russia still got the means to mess with democracies worldwide.
Hmm.
Putin's got buddies in this, each one a threat to any free nation, to regional or global order, to human rights and democracy, be it Hamas, Iran, North Korea, or others. No accidents here. They are all linked by their hate for freedom. Putin's crafting his own ideology, and at its core is complete disregard for human life, for freedom, and for respecting any kind of borders between countries, between people, even between truth and lies. He's
So he's hitting again and again a number of notes that should resonate with Americans' values, and he's doing a good job of tying what's happening there to the values that we cherish, right and wrong, truth and justice and freedom, and the axis of evil he described without using the term axis of evil.
Spreading this ideology, looking for allies, even here in America. His weapon against you right now is propaganda and disinformation.
That's exactly
But
right.
if he sees a chance, he'll go further. Now he is shifting Russia's economy and society onto what he calls war tracks. Sadly, he's had time to do this, but the direction of these war tracks is clear. I'm sure you see it. Russia is set on more than just Ukraine's land, resources, or our people. It won't be satisfied with just a part of Ukraine or even all of it. Ukraine is just a stepping stone for Russia, a way to act like that old empire that died in 1989 and to challenge the lead of freedom wherever the Russia Tsar likes. Putin
Now, that's an important point, and he has to sell it. It has to be believable. It has to be understood. It has to be embraced that Putin wants more. It's not just this local thing with Ukraine. If you could, to the degree that it's seen as a local Ukrainian, maybe a squabble between these two countries that, maybe they're the same country, kind of with just a little different people groups, whatever. To the degree it's that, they lose. To the degree that he can expand it and make it freedom's fight, he wins.
must lose, so that everyone else who sees Russia's war on Ukraine as his personal lecture at the so-called University of Aggression gets the message loud and clear. Putin must lose. And now, and now I want to share 3 points about Ukraine's impact. The impact I started talking about at the very beginning of my speech. First point, no matter what some tsars might want, anywhere in the free world, you won't hear phrases like after the collapse of Europe or after freedom in Europe has fallen, because you'll never hear after the fall of Ukraine.
Okay, that's good. Solid point.
And we are going to stop Russia right at the start of its global war against freedom, right where the first front line is, on our land, in our skies, at our sea. Ukraine is the first front, but we've got to make sure, and we can make sure, it doesn't come to having a second or third front against freedom somewhere in the Baltic countries or another part of the world, when there's a chance to defend one country's freedom to avoid fighting in other lands. That's what should be done. The current generation of free nations should learn from past battles in Europe that destruction spread by dictatorship is too greedy and it needs to be stopped right at the start. And I wanted to remind everyone that exactly on this day, December 11th, 82 years ago, the United States, with soldiers, officers, generals, America's sons, daughters, just like those present here now, had to join the continental war in Europe. And now it's without American boots on European ground defending freedom against Russia's aggression. American Bradleys, HIMARS.
Okay, so I was wondering if he was going to misstep here with the World War I reference, and part of my mind was going to Lafayette. We have arrived, right? But at the same time, the mood in the United States is not like we don't want to send soldiers, and so he pivoted quickly enough to say, look, it's without your boots on the ground, right? And so he saved himself from stepping onto a potential thorny piece here in that speech.
155 caliber artillery, ATACMS, Patriots, F-16s can get the job done in Europe. Exactly how global freedom needs it. The whole world is watching us, observing what destiny other free nation could face to live freely or to be subjugated. Ukrainians haven't given up and won't give up. We know what to do, and you can count on Ukraine, and we hope just as much to be able to count
Good line.
on you.
That's a great line. You're like, you can count on us. We hope just as much to be able to count on you. Now, I read clippings of this yesterday. I didn't watch the whole thing, and so we're watching it together, but that was a great line. Solid.
So my second point is this. There are two key things, confidence and security. They are crucial for internal stability in countries and for international peace. There's no human community where evil hasn't tried to take over at some point. Crime and terrorism are threats to any society. Aggressiveness and disrespect for freedom are unfortunately found in many parts of the world, and often hatred rules the streets and hearts. And there's no defense against this except for these two things: the confidence of those who believe in freedom and the security guaranteed by the defenders of freedom when they come together, cooperate, and uphold rules that are mandatory for everyone.
Okay, so that was really a good patch right there. That last little bit, talking about how evil just keeps rising and rising everywhere. This is the human condition. I mean, he's speaking to military folks who understand they can't sit around and think, well, people are just basically good, and if you just talked it out, we'll all agree and get along. They're not going to do that. These people understand that evil exists, and human beings can be awful to each other, and he's hitting all the high notes here.
Together, we must uphold the rule of law, our institutions and alliances that protect democracy and ensure security, including NATO, so that nowhere in the world, not even in the darkest corner of the planet, is there a temptation to think some other order can dominate the world other than freedom. America and all free nations need to be confident in themselves, in their strengths, in their leadership, so that dictatorships doubt themselves and their power to undermine freedom. When the free world hesitates, that's when dictatorships celebrate and their most dangerous ambitions ripen. Every one of you here understands what it means for a soldier to wait for munition, waiting for weeks, months without knowing if support will come at all. Every one of you with command experience knows what it means when instead of moving forward, you're just watching, waiting for armor or equipment while your enemy is satisfied and preparing for assaults.
This is really powerful. Who he's speaking to and what he's saying is pretty significant. I read a line the other day in just a artilleryman saying, ammunition builds confidence. That's right. I mean, if you have the weapons, if you have the supplies, if you and he's speaking to people who know what it's potentially know what it's like to have been in the position that he's currently in writ large. And so this is hitting very well.
Of you with a son or daughter in combat zone just wouldn't get it if they were told that protecting lives could wait because there's a little more debating. Let me be frank with you, friends. If there's anyone inspired by unresolved issues on Capitol Hill is just Putin and his sick clique.
Yeah, that's a great line, that Putin is inspired by the unresolved issues on Capitol Hill. This is this is breathing life into, fanning the flames of Putin's confidence. So don't do that.
They see the dreams come true when they see the delays or some scandals, and they see freedom to fall when the support of freedom fighters go down. And people like Putin shouldn't even hope to conquer freedom. And we can show our children, grandchildren, what real confidence is, as was shown to us when in Berlin, the great words were spoken: tear down this wall.
Good connection. Great connection to Ronald Reagan talking about tear down this wall, right? I mean, he's connecting everything that he's saying to American values as clearly as he can.
With no less confidence now than President Reagan had then. And I believe this is our common goals, that the security established after 1989 is fully restored and preserved, that freedom has then proved that when its borders expand in one country, freedom for all people expands. And that next year, in 2024, the aggression of the current enemy of the free world begins to collapse, just like that wall. And we can make it real. So, moving on to the third point, ladies and gentlemen, our actual achievements are something to talk about. And alongside with our partners, we already accomplished more than anyone expected when Russia started this war. Ukraine is in a battle against a nuclear state and one of the biggest armies. But despite everything, we have already regained 50% of territory that Russia captured at the beginning of this war. God bless our warriors.
Okay, so that before he said God bless our warriors, I was thinking about something. He was saying we've already captured or recaptured 50% of this territory or whatever, but it's kind of falling a little bit flat. Yes, that is an achievement, but we're kind of looking at, well, what have you done since the counteroffensive? And so he's got to be careful not to just amplify that and neglect what's not happened recently. I mean, that really has to be part of the picture. The God bless our warriors actually brought out the applause, and that's, again, you're dealing with speaking to warriors.
And we are doing this under conditions where, unfortunately, the air superiority still remains with Russia. Yep. And we are building our air shield, including systems like American Patriot. Thank you very much. Thanks, United States. Thank you very much.
So he's got to walk a fine line between asking and being very, very grateful and not looking like it's just a given that he will get these things, because he can come across as arrogant if he's doing that, or demanding if he's doing that, and Russia will play that up, and then repeaters will play that up, and we got to avoid that.
And it's really helped and helps, which protect our cities from missile attacks. Ukrainian economy has grown more than 5% this year, and it's not just a miracle, and it's the result of courage of our warriors, our entire nations, and the crucial support from America, from other global democracies, from our partners. And when cities are safe, freedom boosts the economy. And we are working with President Biden, and I'm very thankful to him, so that Ukraine and the US can produce weapons together necessary for protecting freedom. This will make Ukraine become of confidence and security for all of Europe, for our now joint allies and partners. Ukraine won in the Black Sea.
Great line.
Yes.
Yeah. Ukraine won in the Black Sea. Now look at this. There's very little change on the map when you look at the front line. Maybe a few kilometers here, a few kilometers there. But the Black Sea, they chased the Russian Navy away from port multiple times, hit their headquarters, hit and sunk their ships. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing what they've been able to do, and that's going to resonate because it's true and it's recent.
And now the Russian Black Sea fleet is partially destroyed or hidden in remote base. Thanks to this, we've resumed our maritime exports, including food exports, protecting dozens of nations in Africa and Asia from hunger and chaos. Next year, Ukraine will clear more shipping lanes. And by now, it is not a secret that Ukraine's response to Russian barbarism can shake the ground in the heart of Moscow. It's a proof of our true strength. Plus, Ukraine is reforming its state institutions. Even in wartime, we are fixing the system to start negotiation with the EU about joining. We keep our promises. We make more strength. Right now, amid fierce battles, our soldiers are holding positions on the front and preparing for further actions. And we haven't let Russia score any victories this year. Yes.
So that's a great line. We haven't let Russia score any victories this year. So that's true. They have not been able to take Advika. They haven't been able to really show like we've got this great something. I mean, they took um, they got a victory in Bakhmut, but how much of a Pyrrhic victory was Bakhmut? I mean, so it really cost them more than it deserved. So that's a very good point that he made here. Huh.
Putin tries to create new problems, but our tactic isn't just about waiting what Russia will do, not just about adapting to the problems Putin creates. It's about effectively solving problems. Solving that the key to victory. Tomorrow, in meetings with President Biden and Congress, I'll talk about what result we can achieve next year based on our achievements this year. By pushing Putin back, we'll strip his aggression of its meaning. Then he will no longer be able to deceive Russia as if he personally and his war have a future. Expanding our capabilities in the sky, especially air defense on the front, will remove Russia's air advantage. That's solving one of our major problems. Almost no one believed we would win at the sea, but now it's a fact, and we have to win in the sky too. Patriots and electronic warfare and drones and jets, of course, all this will help our forces move on the ground as needed. And it's crucial that politics don't even try to betray the soldiers, because just like weapons are needed for their defense, freedom always requires unity.
Mhm.
And I'm confident that freedom can be stronger than any of its enemies. And I believe
He's talked about the politics not betraying the soldier, and he's got to be very careful here with the language. But he's right, and we're agreed on that point. Even if the politics has still got to work out its process, he's hitting a lot of high notes, and I'm going to highlight that in a moment.
we can be just as effective in defending freedom now as at the free world was in 1989. And I'm as confident today as I was on February 24th, when I told world leaders Ukraine will fight, Ukraine will stand. And I'm confident that freedom must always prevail. when challenged. And I thank you, America, for your support. And I believe that one day at this university, not only those who studied Russia can give lectures, but also Ukrainians who defeated Russia.
Great line.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Okay, so that's the end of the speech. Now let's look at what happened in that speech. He starts off by talking about connecting us to the Berlin Wall, connecting us to the bigger picture of what this means. It's not just about some oblast that nobody's ever heard of in Ukraine before the war. It's about your freedom. He connected that very nicely. He talked about how evil Putin was and what Putin's planning to do and how Putin's going to keep going if it doesn't stop here. And I think that's pretty fair that Putin would stop going or would not stop going, and he would keep going if he is not stopped there. Like this is there's ambition there. I read an article some time ago about how Putin could run over, like, say, Lithuania or Estonia or something, and NATO couldn't do anything immediately. They could fight him back and dislodge them eventually. That's true, but like the Russians could overrun it before NATO could actually bring up a defense. That's a legitimate kind of defense of um, argument that this is a legitimate possibility. Now, I don't know that that's likely or probable anytime soon, but we don't want to get into that kind of scenario. And Putin has proven himself to be not the most trustworthy guy, so he's on that. Then he talked about like the Black Sea was masterful, right? Because this we know without talking about how look the counteroffensive didn't really go so well. He didn't go into that, but we all know that that's the case. But he did talk about his successes in the Black Sea, and then he ended in an optimistic note about what was going to happen in the future and how we're going to win and even be speaking here at the end. Great speech. Let's hope that he does just as well with his meetings in Washington today. And this is just really great rhetoric. Okay, tell me what you thought about the speech. I'm sorry to interrupt as much as I did, but I tried to point out only the most important things as I saw them. Tell me about what you saw in the comments below. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.